Let's talk a little bit about my approach to putting samples on the grid. I have a drum loop going. Okay. I have a lot of hits. Whenever I'm putting drum samples together, there's a lot of 16 notes that I use, and that is the sort of technique that I want to take in to layering with my samples. So when I'm making the drum loop, I use a lot of these in-betweens. I got a kick and I do like double kicks, right? So there's like these in-between notes that I use a lot. And I want to take this same energy, this same concept to when I'm putting samples on the grid as well. So the approach is that I treat samples, I treat my chops as a percussion, as just this extra sound of the drums. So what I want to do here is just give you like a sense of how I approach when I'm layering samples on the drums. And typically, one of the things that I don't do is just sit on the ones and twos. Just be like, okay, let me get, just be like.
In the sun when the cold has gone, in the sun when the cold has.
There's nothing wrong with that, but there's a lot in between these places, like the 16 notes between these, that you can use to create more groove, add more groove to the drums. So if you notice, a lot of the times I'm putting like these 16 notes in there. I'm putting like, I'm not just on the one and twos. If I was just on the one, I wouldn't find this groove. Right, we got that. I'm gonna put that on the one. Right. Right. Now let's move it. Let's try to move it. I'm just gonna nudge the note up to different spots. So right now it's a slight different place. That works. Not the beginning, but right? Right? So just like with the drums that you're putting in these 16 notes and creating these intricate patterns on the hi-hats and on the kicks, you can do the same for the samples. They don't need to stay steady on the ones and twos, especially if you have small little cuts like this. They can really take up space right in the middle with those 16 notes. You can drop them right there. Think of it as just an extra symbol of the drums, just like this extra sound of the drums that you put in and you're working with it with the drums. So if you think like that, you'll find a lot of great grooves and patterns that you can do aside just putting it on the ones and twos. Right? This to me seems that is going faster, too fast than what the drums are. So what I would do here is I would just pitch it, because to me it's always more about how the samples work with the drums. And it doesn't need to be perfect in time, but it needs to be close enough to create this movement between the drums and samples. Right, so that's the one. Now let's get into these 16s. Boom. And right where that's gonna hit, that second sound, stop it right there, because we're gonna jump to the other one. Right? I really like that. Let's just record this in. There's always so many possibilities here when you think like that. When you're trying to find position for these samples, there are so many possibilities, really. So that's how I treat my samples. Whenever I'm putting samples on the grid, I know that when I'm hitting the sample, I'm looking for these places. I'm looking for these little spots, like especially with these type of samples, because sometimes you got a chord that alone doesn't have groove in it. It's just a chord, right? You can still place the chord in between all these 16 notes and stuff like that, but samples like this that have a lot of that have dynamics, that have changes, that have extra sounds in there. All these sounds can play with the drums, right? So it's fun to try them as just as a percussion hit and see what kind of dynamics they have, how they work with the drums. If you place them in different places, how's the groove? How are these hits interacting with the rest of the groove? So I'm not thinking about harmonics or anything at this point. I'm just thinking, because harmonics are easy, man. You just pitch the sample and you either get it or you don't. So there's nothing to it. I think really the interesting thing here is to find these places where the samples work with the drums. And you might say, well, if you just chop everything into 16 and you're on the BPM, we're going to go back into that same conversation where I just say, like, I don't really care too much about what the BPM of things are. I don't know what the BPM of this is. Again, I've said this countless times. I get tired of saying it, but I know I'll get comments of people just say, just match the BPM. That's exactly where I'm trying to get from. I'm trying to get away from those things of BPM and chopping it on the 1 and 2s. I'm trying to get away from that because I just love the possibilities of working with things that are not on the same tempo and that they're put in odd places, because I find a lot of grooves that way. If you think like that, if you think like, okay, this is just an extension of my drums, I like that. That is percussion in its essence. This is percussion. Right? Let me see what I can do here with that second hit. So that second part isn't working that well. So what I'll do again, maybe introduce another thing in the middle there. Again, not on the 1 or the 2. I'm in between. I could put that on the snare if I want. It's better. Right? Oh, got that nice. Right? Oh, that's nice. There's like, again, it feels like it sounds bad, but there's like this push-pull groove in there. Right. Right. There's like, it takes some time for the other note to come in, That is the sort of thing, that sort of groove mentality of just drums that I'm using on my samples. Right? I wanna even push that a little bit back. So I'm using this. So I want to make sure that it plays a little bit before, so there's a stop in the middle. Right? And as you see, I'm putting these samples together. This is how I typically drop things on my drums, is looking for these grooves and not worrying about if this is on the 1, on the 2. So this is how I approach it when I'm on my drums, trying to put samples on top of the drums. Any spot in between there I can use. But also the important thing is that when you're chopping a sample, you remember that don't be afraid to chop outside of the 1s and 2s. So when I'm chopping a sample, it also comes from that mentality of like, where are places here that would be good to put a chop in? So, you know, it's not just I'm chopping on the 1s and 2s all the time. No. So that was it. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Hopefully you took something out of it. And yeah, that's basically how I make my samples work with my drums. If you enjoyed the video, hit the like. Thank you so much for watching. Appreciate that. I'll see you on the next one. Peace. Bye-bye.